Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at an absolutely fascinating cross-section of today's top stories, all pulled directly from our source material. We're going to be examining wildly different structures of accountability. We are going from the halls of Congress to federal lockup and right out onto the basketball court. So let's jump straight into the facts, the arguments, and the sheer unpredictability of today's news cycle.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our newsroom grid for today to help us make sense of these wildly different updates. We're going to cover political crossfire and controversies, true crime in courts, sports scandals and crossovers, and finally, celebrity news and trends.
Kicking things off with Section 1, Political Crossfire and Controversies, we'll be looking at the fierce debate over Dr. Fauci and Hunter Biden speaking out.
Right now, there is this massive, stark divide surrounding Dr. Anthony Fauci's decision to plead the Fifth. If you look at one side, his defenders are calling this modern McCarthyism. They're arguing that he is being unfairly targeted by the Senate and the Department of Justice purely for political retribution, specifically aimed at perceived enemies of the former Trump administration. But on the flip side, people like Congresswoman Nancy Mace are absolutely insisting this is strictly about perjury and accountability. They are claiming he lied under oath regarding Wuhan lab funding and his public stance on pandemic school closures.
Now, to really understand this, we need to look at the exact details and legal realities fueling the debate. First up, there's a lot of confusion floating around about Joe Biden's pardon of Dr. Fauci. The legal reality here is that a pardon only covers federal issues, and crucially, it only applies to actions taken up to the date it was issued, so it does not act as some blanket shield for anything he might say to Congress afterward. Congresswoman Mace points directly to a specific $3 million grant to the Wuhan lab, and she even cites her own claimed vaccine injuries to demand accountability. Meanwhile, Fauci's defenders, they point to a decades-long record of public service. They highlight his literal life-saving work circumventing bureaucracy during the AIDS epidemic and his leadership during the Ebola crisis. So for the public watching, it really boils down to this critical distinction. Was Dr. Fauci just making the best calls with evolving science in real time, or was there deliberate deception under oath? Because of the limits of a presidential pardon, that distinction is legally crucial right now.
Now, what's really interesting about this is while Dr. Fauci is battling it out in these hearings, Hunter Biden took to the macro-dosing podcast and just completely unloaded. After making it crystal clear that he is absolutely not running for public office, he used that freedom to explicitly attack Democratic leadership. As you can see from the sheer bluntness of this quote, he squarely blames Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and former Speaker Nancy Pelosi for pushing his father Joe Biden out of the presidential race. It's a remarkable level of public-friendly fire for sure.
Moving smoothly on to Section 2, True Crime and Courts. We've got updates on Diddy, the Nolan Wells mystery, and a fatal error by the FBI. Sean Diddy Combs' federal prison sentence is honestly a perfect example of how the prison system calculates accountability. He was originally scheduled for release in February 2028, but because of his participation in anger management and rehabilitation classes, he actually got that date moved up to January 2028. Here's the massive irony, though. Diddy is currently sitting in solitary confinement waiting on a disciplinary hearing for a recent fight at the Fort Dix federal prison. If they find him at fault, he could lose that 15% good behavior credit, which means that release date is going to slide right back down the calendar.
Accountability remains incredibly elusive in our next case, which is still heavily scrutinized. The tragic death of Nolan Wells is wrapped in this intense mystery, and it centers entirely on one critical question. Who was on the island with Nolan after 4:30? Based on the source material, we know the boat he arrived on took off without him. That leaves a massive, glaring gap in the timeline, and as you can imagine, it is just fueling endless online speculation.
And that online speculation has sparked a truly bizarre legal standoff. Nolan's friend, Bart Edmiston, has officially lawyered up against internet sleuths who are accusing him of foul play over a girl named Katie McCormick. He stated he is fully cooperating with the police, he's handed over 20 names of people he saw that day, and he's just firing off cease and desist letters. But here's the kicker. One of the people who received those letters, an OnlyFans influencer named Kimber Lee, is practically begging him to sue her. She publicly went out and said, "I am poor, sue me, I'll claim bankruptcy." It is this wild game of legal chicken drawing some real parallels to the famous Cardi B and Tasha Tay defamation case. It proves that sometimes suing for defamation is way more about sending a message than actually collecting a payout.
Our final story from the legal desk is just deeply tragic. Journalist Greta Van Susteren released a bombshell report from FBI documents revealing that the FBI conducted a sting operation where they actually paid prime suspect Duran Vandersloot $25,000 for information on Natalie Holloway's remains. Because they failed to arrest him for extortion and wire fraud right then and there, he used that money to fly to Peru, where he murdered a young woman named Stephanie Flores. He's currently serving 28 years in a Peruvian prison, and there is a U.S. extradition treaty waiting for him upon his release. It is a sobering look at how a botched operation had literally catastrophic consequences.
All right, let's shift gears and bring the energy up for Section 3, Sports Scandals and Crossovers. We are diving into the WNBA's $400 problem.
And this brilliantly illustrates one of the absolute biggest PR blunders in recent sports memory. Like all major leagues, the WNBA rulebook has an incredibly strict collective bargaining prohibition against players betting on games. You absolutely cannot gamble on the sport you play, period. Yet completely unprompted, the WNBA's very own official social media team posted a video of two of their massive stars, Paige Buchers and Angel Reese, casually making a $400 wager on a game right there on camera. You really can't make this up.
Naturally, the league scrambled and hastily deleted the video once they realized what they had done. But take a look at their official statement. They claimed the post, quote, missed the mark. They noted that players receive annual training on gambling policies, and they said they addressed the matter internally. Do you notice what's missing here? Yeah, any mention of a fine or punishment for the players. The WNBA is in a really tough spot because they obviously don't want to suspend megastars like Reese and Buchers. But by letting this slide with just an internal warning, they risk setting a very controversial precedent for how they might treat lesser-known players who break the exact same rule in the future.
Okay, let's lighten the mood completely as we dive into our final segment, Section 4, Celebrity News and Trends. We've got Donna Mills, Cardi B's diet, and some surprising SVU cameos.
85. That is the age of former Knots Landing and Dallas absolute icon and 1980s sex symbol Donna Mills. And why is her age in the news today? Because at 85 years old, she just shocked everyone by launching her very own OnlyFans account. No way, right?
When her management asked her why in the world she was taking this leap, Donna Mills simply replied, "YOLO, you only live once." She stated she simply wants a new way to communicate directly with her fans. It is a fascinating, pioneer move for an 85-year-old, and it's definitely leading to questions about whether she'll be posting archival, retro pictures from her primetime soap opera days or entirely new content. Either way, she is proving that reinvention absolutely has no age limit.
In other surprising celebrity updates, Cardi B recently took to social media to dispel rumors that she had a second butt reduction surgery. Fans noticed she was looking incredibly, in her own words, snatched. While her advice for achieving this was incredibly blunt and practical. Step 1, drink fiber so food doesn't sit in your system. Step 2, hydrate heavily with water and coffee in the morning to stay regular. And Step 3, the most direct advice of all, control your mouth. She advised that if you have a big event or trip coming up, you need to eat light for a few days prior. No double quarter pounders. It's oversharing, sure, but you have to admit it's highly practical digestion advice from a global superstar.
Let's wrap up the celebrity news by discussing a potential TV crossover event. Rapper and actor Ice-T recently joked about heading into the, quote, 419th season of Law & Order SVU. But he dropped a very interesting hint about guest stars. We know his co-star Mariska Hargitay is a massive courtside-sitting New York Knicks fan. Because of her influence, there are heavy rumors that Knicks star Jalen Brunson will actually be making a guest appearance on the show. And there's totally precedent for this. When Hargitay fell in love with the Broadway show Hamilton, seemingly half the cast ended up with guest roles on SVU. So keep an eye out for an exceptionally tall detective in the precinct this season.
And that brings us to the end of today's grid. We have covered a lot of ground today, looking at very different systems of rules and consequences. We went from the intense political debate over Dr. Fauci's testimony, to a botched FBI sting, to the WNBA accidentally promoting a rule violation. So I want to leave you with this provocative question to think about. From political perjury claims to WNBA wagers, which of today's controversies surprised you the most? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it brought some clarity to your day, and I will see you next time.